Hello, my name is Lorraine Chivers and I'm the designer, quilt maker and tea maker and everything else at Sea Parrot, and today I'm going to show you how to make a Seashore Economy block quilt. I'm going to use Sea Parrot fabrics, which can be found on www.seaparrot.co.uk. To make a quilt that is 6x9 blocks, you will need 8 fat quarters. I used this bundle that can be found on my website, which is all things that you see on the seashore. I also used 6 fabric strips. In this case, I used a mix of shorebirds and seabirds, and these can also be found on my website. I made 8 different economy blocks from 4 different fabric combinations. To explain, these are my 4 fabric combinations. I used starfish with the barnacles and limpets, jetsam with the beadlet anemones, sand patterns with the top shells, and cockles and mussels with the calm sea. I cut out 14 4x4 inch squares and 14 3x3 inch squares from each of the fat quarters. To make one block, you will need 2 4-inch squares, 2 3-inch squares, and a bird square which is cut accurately to 3.5 inches. Don't just cut a bit off each side, make sure that the bird is in the centre. You then need to cut the 4 non-bird squares into diagonals like this, and it's very important you do it this way, particularly if the fabric has direction. So now you take 2 of the smaller triangles and fold them in half and create a small crease on the long side to find the centre of that side. You then need to do the same with the large square. You could use a pen or pencil or some tailor's chalk to measure and mark, but I just find this is a lot less hassle. We're always looking for easier options, aren't we? So now you can see the centre of the 4 sides are marked, and now we can match up the centre of the long sides of the small triangles. And then if we put them right sides together, matching up the creases still, you can put a pin in that central, where that central crease is, and then pin along each side. Do the same with the other triangle. And then you need to sew along each of those edges using a 1/4 inch seam. Then you can open out and press it carefully. I usually use a white cloth in between the iron and my patchwork. Make sure you press away from the central square. And then the next thing you need to do is take away those little triangles, cut it to the same size as the central square. Then you need to do the same with the other small triangles. Crease on the long side. And then match it up with the crease on each side of the central square. Then again, pin right sides together, matching up the creases. Pin and then sew with a 1/4 inch seam on each side. Press open. Seams away from the central square. And then cut off those 4 little triangles again. As you can see, it's not that completely neat around the edges. You can see there's a few bits that are short, but we'll deal with those. I'll show you how to deal with those bits later. So now you take your larger triangles. Make sure, this is particularly important to make sure that the pattern is going in the right direction. And this is how the finished block is going to end up. So you can see the sea is all horizontal. So again, mark the centre of the two sides of the mark the centre of the two long sides of the triangle. Then mark the centre of the sides of the central patchwork square. And then you can match those up. Then pin them right sides together. As you can see, I'm sliding up so I know that I am matching the centres. As you can see, that's where I was a bit short, so I've made the larger triangle make up for that by pinning it slightly outside the square. And then you need to sew along with 1/4 inch seam. When you get to the bulky bit where the corner of the central bird square is, slow right down when you're sewing, and otherwise it'll go a bit wobbly because it's quite thick there. And as you can see, I've managed to keep my corners, which is great. So then press it away and then remove the little triangles on the side as before. Then you need to repeat that with the two bigger triangles. So pin, again, I had to make up for the short areas on that side and a bit on that side as well. So you have to make sure that it's about 4 3/4 inches square. This is a bit of a hassle, but it does make a lot of difference. It makes it a lot more neat. Nice picture of my light there. As you can see, I've just about kept the corners of my squares there, so that's quite good. And my sea is all horizontal. So now I can press it. And again, I need to remove those little triangles. It's all nice and flat on the back. But one of the things you do need to make sure you do is make sure that there is a 1/4 inch between the corner of the middle square and the outside, so that when you sew the blocks together, it doesn't cut off the point of that square. And then also trim your squares so that they are 6.5 inches square. And now you've got your finished block. So now you need to make another 54. So I arranged mine randomly, and then I sewed 6 together in a row and then sewed the rows together. And that's it, your Seashore Economy block quilt topper is finished. All you need to do now is maybe add a border around the edge, quilt, and then bind. I hope you found this tutorial useful, and I hope you found it enjoyable, and maybe see you again another time.